One simple question during a routine traffic stop can change your life in seconds, and most law-abiding gun owners never realize the danger until it's too late. One wrong answer to a single question can turn a completely routine traffic stop into a felony arrest, and most gun owners never see it coming. I study gun laws and real-world police encounters, and if a police officer ever asks you, "Are you armed?" there is only one response that consistently protects you. Every other answer, even the ones that sound polite, reasonable, or cooperative, can and often does get people arrested. And I want to be very clear about something before we go any further. The people who get burned by this are not criminals. They are ordinary law-abiding gun owners who thought they were doing the right thing. There are documented cases where gun owners with clean records, valid permits, and legally owned firearms who still ended up in handcuffs. Not because of the gun, because of what they said. If you carry a firearm, this video may be the most important one you ever watch. Now, when an officer asks, "Are you armed?" it feels like a simple yes or no question. It sounds like a safety check. It sounds reasonable. And because most people want to be cooperative, they answer without thinking. That instinct is exactly what gets people in trouble. Legally speaking, that question is not about your safety or the officer's safety. It is about information, control, and evidence. Everything you say during a police encounter is being evaluated, recorded, and potentially written into a report that may later be used against you. Police reports are not neutral summaries. They are documents written to justify actions after the fact. If the encounter escalates even slightly, your words will be framed in the least favorable way possible. And once those words are on paper, you cannot take them back. Let me walk you through what usually happens. An officer approaches your vehicle. Maybe you were speeding. Maybe you had a broken taillight. Nothing serious. Then the officer asks, "Are you armed?" Most gun owners respond in one of three ways. Some say, "Yes, but I have a permit." Others say, "I'm legally carrying." Some try to sound extra responsible and say something like, "Yes, but it's unloaded and locked in the trunk." All three of those answers feel reasonable. All three of those answers feel cooperative. And all three of those answers can be used against you. The moment you answer that question, you have done several things whether you realize it or not. You have admitted possession of a firearm. You have opened the door to follow-up questions. And you have given the officer discretion to escalate the encounter. Now the officer can ask where the gun is, whether it's loaded, whether you touched it, whether you've been drinking, whether you're nervous, whether you're sure you're allowed to carry it in that location. Every additional question increases the risk of a misunderstanding. Every clarification creates the possibility of a contradiction, and every contradiction becomes suspicious behavior in the report. I cannot tell you how many court records and case outcomes show where the arrest didn't happen because the gun was illegal, but because the officer decided the situation didn't feel right. That phrase "didn't feel right" shows up constantly in police reports. And once it's there, judges give officers enormous leeway. Here's the uncomfortable truth that most gun owners don't want to hear. Talking does not protect you. Talking exposes you. You are not trained to navigate legal traps under stress. Police officers are trained to create and exploit them. So what is the only response that consistently protects gun owners? The safest response is calm, polite, and short. "Officer, I choose to remain silent and would like to speak with a lawyer." That's it. No explanation, no justification, no attempt to sound helpful. You assert your rights and then you stop talking. Silence is not suspicious. Silence is not disrespectful. Silence is protection. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, if I say that, won't the officer think I'm hiding something? No. Officers do not arrest people because they remain silent. They arrest people because they talk themselves into problems. Silence prevents misunderstandings. Silence prevents accidental admissions. Silence prevents you from saying something that sounds different under stress than it does in your head. And stress changes everything. Your heart rate goes up. Your mouth moves faster than your brain. You forget exact wording. You misstate timelines. You guess instead of knowing. And guessing in a police encounter is dangerous. I've watched body cam footage where a gun owner answered a question honestly but imprecisely, and that small imprecision became probable cause for a search. That search then uncovered something completely unrelated, which turned a traffic stop into a criminal case. All of it started with talking. Now, let's talk about what happens after you invoke your right to remain silent, because this is where many people make a critical mistake. Invoking your rights does not end the encounter. The officer may continue speaking. They may try to re-engage you. They may say things like, "I'm just trying to help you," or, "If you don't have anything to hide, just answer the question." Those statements are designed to make you talk again. The moment you start talking after invoking your rights, you undo the protection you just created. I have seen cases where someone invoked their right to remain silent perfectly and then ruined it 30 seconds later by trying to clear things up. There is nothing to clear up. Your silence already did the job. Now, I need to pause here and address something important, because someone in the comments will bring it up if I don't. Yes, some states have duty to inform laws. Those laws are narrow, specific, and often misunderstood, and they are exactly why staying informed matters. This channel exists to explain those differences clearly so you don't learn them the hard way. Gun laws change constantly. Court interpretations change, enforcement priorities change, and relying on outdated advice can cost you your freedom. That's why subscribing matters not for entertainment, but for protection. If you carry a firearm, you are one legal misunderstanding away from a life-altering problem. And the people who suffer the most are the ones who thought, "I'm legal, so I'll be fine." They weren't. Now, let's talk about the part most people get wrong, even after they've heard advice like this. They understand that silence is important. They understand that talking can hurt them, but they assume the rules are simple and universal. They are not. This is where duty to inform laws come in. And this is where people get themselves into serious trouble by relying on internet advice instead of actual legal understanding. Some states require you to inform law enforcement that you are carrying a firearm under specific circumstances. Some states only require it if you are asked directly. Some states do not require it at all. And some states have rules that change, depending on whether you are carrying concealed, openly, or under a specific permit. The problem is that many gun owners don't know which category they fall into. They assume that being legal means being protected. It doesn't. There are documented cases where gun owners violated duty to inform laws without even realizing it. They weren't trying to hide anything. They simply didn't know the rule existed, or they misunderstood when it applied. And the law does not care whether you meant to break it. Ignorance of the law is not a defense. Judges say that phrase for a reason. This is why blanket advice like "always tell the officer" or "never tell the officer" is dangerous. Both statements are wrong depending on where you are standing. What protects you is not memorizing slogans. What protects you is understanding how the law actually works where you live. Now, let's talk about escalation, because this is where a routine stop turns into something much more serious. Once an officer knows or believes you are armed, the entire encounter changes. Officer safety protocols kick in. Backup may be called. Commands may become sharper. Movements that were ignored moments ago are suddenly scrutinized. This doesn't mean the officer is doing something wrong. It means the situation has shifted, and the more you talk, the more opportunities there are for that shift to become justification for further action. I've reviewed countless police reports where phrases like "the subject appeared nervous," "the subject kept explaining," or "the subject gave inconsistent answers" were used to justify a search or detention. Those phrases don't require malice. They only require ambiguity. And ambiguity is created by talking. Here's something else most people don't realize. Police are legally allowed to lie to you. They can tell you they already know something they don't. They can suggest consequences that don't actually exist. They can imply that cooperation will make things go easier, even when it won't. What they cannot do is force you to talk. Your right to remain silent exists precisely because people under stress say things that hurt them. The legal system recognizes that reality. even if the culture around policing often ignores it. Now, let me be very clear here, because this matters. Remaining silent does not mean being hostile. It does not mean being rude. It does not mean arguing. You can be calm, polite, and respectful while still protecting yourself. In fact, the best outcomes usually happen when someone asserts their rights clearly and then disengages emotionally. The people who get into the most trouble are not the ones who stay quiet. They are the ones who try to manage the encounter through explanation. They think if they just explain enough, the officer will understand. That's not how policing works. Officers are not there to decide guilt or innocence at the moment. They are there to control a situation and document what happens. Explanations do not help that process. They complicate it. And complications almost always hurt the citizen, not the state. Let me give you a hypothetical scenario that mirrors real cases. This is why ordinary encounters spiral into arrests for people who did nothing wrong, and why knowing how these moments unfold can make all the difference.